Good morning, everyone, and once again, thank you very much for your being here so early in the morning. I was also struggling between, as they say, to be or not to be, or to have breakfast or not to have breakfast. So, if I had known that this is already here, the boxes, please feel free to eat. By the way, I would have directly anyway. So, but we understand and appreciate it's very early in the morning, but highly appreciate that you finally were able to make it. So thanks. Uh, Regarding, I think we had a very wonderful session yesterday on starting with how to think about paper writing, why paper writing, scientific paper writing, and some of the basics. So what we are going to do is to build on what we did yesterday with our colleagues, our panelists, and we are going to look at in more little bit of more detail regarding the anatomy of a paper. What are the different sections of the paper and how to approach that particular section. So, and definitely Jen told me that we are also going to have use of technology for, I don't know, Q&A. So she'll be helping and guiding in this whole process.
Yesterday. So if people were using it, the code for slido.com is 1019006. That's 1019006, which was the same as yesterday. I'll put it up after Moazzam's talk, and we can get some questions there or some live questions from the room. Sorry to.
So you will have to, okay, now that's fine. So to start with, I would like to know if colleagues sitting here, have you published a paper so far? Can I see some hands? Oh, quite a number. But then there are other colleagues who may be considering writing a paper or how to start with. So I think your experience and also those who haven't started yet on this, I would say, journey of writing a paper, scientific paper, I think we can mutually benefit. Uh, the other thing which I would like to start with is, why do we have to write a paper? Is it important? Why it is important? Any idea? Why are we interested in writing a scientific paper? Why we think it is, and if it is important? Any thoughts? Anybody? To mobilize the knowledge. That's right. Please. Okay, to provide scientific evidence. Anybody else would like to chip in? Why do we write, or why we are interested in writing a scientific paper? Please. To prove the hypothesis, absolutely. I mean, these are all very valid points that you have mentioned, because when we are doing research, we are trying to prove something, or we are trying to explore something. I mean, research, I'm sure yesterday there was a lot of discussion, I'm sure. I mean, a research can be either exploratory, broadly speaking, or it can be definitive. You are trying to prove, okay, this has already been done. Now I need to have a better research design, and I want to prove what has already been done, perhaps with a larger sample size, with a better study design. If it was observational, I like to go for RCT, something like that. Or it can be simply exploratory. I mean, it's a new research question that has not been much published, or if it has been published, it has been more in the local context of certain country or certain regional area. So you would like to see if the findings that have been done in a particular area or region published, does it also apply to where I am from? So, I mean, there are various reasons why we do research paper, why we do research to start with, and then to document it, writing a research paper. Now, I think the first question that comes to the mind is, where do we start? So these are some broad, I mean, this is not an exhaustive way of looking at it, but this is just to give an idea that starting to do research and ultimately leading to a writing of a paper, we have to start with considering what is our research question or what do we want to do. And while we are thinking what do we want to do, this is a way of looking at it. May be you can think of a research question by simply challenging common sense. Why something happens and why something is not happening. Why the women are not taking their under 5 children whenever the children have diarrhea in a particular area or village or a country maybe. Or why people are not going to the healthcare facility while the health facility is just 1 kilometer away. Why they are not going to the public facility and going to the private, which is costly. So these are, just some challenging some common sense, why it is happening. And then you do research, and then you have to most importantly document using the approach of writing a scientific paper or build on the previous research. You say, well, certain phenomena has happened and but it was a cross-sectional study or it was a qualitative study. Now I need to understand more, I need more clear answers. I need to be definitive, okay, this happens, maybe a cause-effect relationship. This happens because of this. If this is not here, this is not happening. It is the dirty water, unclean water that is causing diarrhea. So if we have clean water, no diarrhea. So interventional study. The village is getting water from a certain source, and you see that it is the children are getting diarrhea, or the women and the men are having even the worms and all, school children. Why it is happening? Because the water is not clean. So you do intervention, clean the water, and things goes away after some time. So you have a better design of the study, or you simply test a theory. You know something is happening and you want to test a hypothesis. You say, okay, well, if this happens, will it happen? So I mean, these are some ways. Now, once we have finalized our research question, we have completed our research, now the challenge comes. The challenge is, how do we start writing a paper? Now we have different sections of a paper, very logically, introduction, methods, and result, and discussion section, and discussion/conclusion. Now the most challenging part, when I was in my early professional career, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to start, because getting started is the most difficult part. Once you have started it, then it's like riding a bicycle. Ultimately, you go there, you learn how to ride, but how to start? And the first barrier or the challenge is introduction section. Now, there are various things we need to understand about the introduction section. Okay, so yeah, introduction section. So most of the time in the, I would say, first 10, 15 papers that I wrote, I spent a lot of time in the introduction section. I would write pages and pages because I want to prove to the reviewers I know this subject. I have a complete in-depth understanding and I have a grip over the literature. So publish my paper, I know introduction. Unfortunately, that is the most or the least interesting part in the whole of paper. So you definitely have to write an introduction, no doubt. You have to show your understanding of the issue broadly, but you don't have to spend your life on writing the whole introduction, 4, 5 pages, 6 pages. I mean, more pragmatically, if you ask me, we are only looking, and by the way, when you read a paper, where do you want to see? You want to look at the abstract, of course, very quickly, and then you want to see what are the results. Have you read introduction in detail? Maybe once, but you are more focused on the results or the interpretation. So this is what everybody is, this is common sense. And this is what everybody is interested in. So think of writing, it's a must. Think of writing introduction which may not go beyond 1 page A4 size or 1.5 page, which is around between 500 to 700 words. Now, why I write the words? It's my way of calculating. A good journal, normally, they entertain a paper that is around 3,000 to 3,500 words. If it is up to 5,000, you can submit, they'll give you back, please cut down. 1/3 of your introduction, so for example. So why go that pathway? Write an introduction which is, or write a whole paper which is around 3,000 plus minus, so that it nicely and precisely fit into their description of what they are interested in and what they are willing to publish. So plan from the beginning. Think of introduction, we are only, and then you will feel also lighter in the chest. Okay, it is only 1.5 page that I have to invest my time in the introduction section. Why, think of reading 50 papers and then writing 4 pages of introduction? No, no. Write the key and most important papers. Write 1.5 page or approximately 500 to 700 words that describes the problem, that talks about what is, what is the past work done in this area and what is the current state of knowledge. And then also focus very clearly on the area that you are going to write on, so that there is a connect between the past work and what you are going to contribute or what is new in your paper. So, and always go for published literature, don't go for gray literature. And sometimes, I mean, when we are doing systematic review, or sometimes there are certain situations where we don't have any literature at all, we consider gray literature, but it is not the norm. The norm is we go for published, peer-reviewed papers and literature, okay? So this is regarding introduction. Now, after the introduction comes methods. Now, this is a very important section of the paper, of the journal. This is where generally the reviewers go very seriously. They look into it, and if you have done a poor job, they will reject your paper. They'll say it's a poor study design, or you have not described what you have done. Let me give you an example. I wrote a paper, and the reviewers gave me a number of comments. You don't have to be discouraged, by the way, by the comment. A lot of time my papers have been rejected. So it happens, it's a norm. So get used to it. They sent me a number of comments, and they said, by the way, have you taken ethics permission for this research that you are writing your paper on? And I looked at the comment, I said, this is common sense. Come on, without ethics, how can I do the research? But then I asked some colleagues, and they said, some senior colleagues, they said, if you do not write, they will do not accept. They will never know that you have done it. So make it a point, the key elements of the method section should be there. Don't believe that they are a little bit of prophetic, or they'll understand through telepathy or something. You have to write those points for them. like a baby, okay, A, B, C, D, E, they'll be happy. Okay? If you miss a D, they will not be happy. They'll reject or they'll send you back. So think about what needs to be in the method section. Well, it can be you start with very clearly, in line with the objectives of the study that you have declared, you start with the study design. It's a cross-sectional study, it's a qualitative study, it's a RCT, it's a cohort, or whatever, case control study. So you declare the study design, then you mention where it was done, depending on the study design. Was it done in one country, in one district of a particular country, or was it a part of multi-country study? So you have to identify the location where it was done, and of course, don't let them guess it was done 10 years ago or it was done last month. Tell them that when it was actually carried out, the timeline. Target population, of course, it's a lot of things look very common sense, but we miss them when we are writing up. If you have certain bullet points, it will be much easier for you to make sure that all these elements are captured. So you have to tell them whether this is focusing on women, adolescent, men, children under 5, and then you have to describe the tool. Have you used a focus group discussion? Was it in-depth interview? Was it a simple questionnaire? Was it a Likert scale? Was it a simple questionnaire that explored various aspects of a particular thematic area? So you have to describe the tool for data collection. A little bit of, if it's a validated tool, fair enough. If it has been used in other studies, or maybe you can describe a little bit that I did my pilot study and I checked the tool and I revised it and now this is the tool sort of thing. Data management. Again, you have to tell them, I remember a cartoon somebody sent me, and it was a mathematical sort of formula that somebody was writing, and then there was somebody had rubbed on the blackboard, and then there was an answer. So the professor was asking the student, I understand in the beginning, but what happened here? So somebody rubbed something. You say, I need to understand this area. So we need to understand how you have done the analysis, how you have done, how did you manage the data? Did you go to the field, or it was a telephone interviews, or it was an online survey? You have to describe. Analysis statistical plan. As I mentioned, it is very important. It is understandable that you have taken, it should be the way, this is how it works. You have taken the ethics permission, but you have to write it for them, like a baby, A, B, C, D, E. So remember, you have to write all these, and it should not be more than 500 words. Keep the 3,000, 3,500 figure in mind. I'm not saying it should not go beyond 500. It can be 600. But this is just to give an idea regarding how much is required. And if you consider covering all these, it should not be more than 500 words. That is half a page. So now we are down to 2 pages so far. And okay, I have 5 more minutes. Going to the result section. Now, result section is the most difficult one, because this is where your understanding of the situation, your understanding of the data that you have collected, and your understanding of how to present your data comes in. What do we need to do? You have to, in the result section, you have to summarize your key finding. For example, 70% of the respondents were women, 30% were men, percentages, numbers, standard deviations, figures, tables, whatever. That comes in the results section. So basically, if you ask me, the systematic description of your result, highlighting the most relevant to the topic under investigation. So this is the area. Remember the very fine difference. I mean, sometimes we mix these things up. In the result section, you don't share your thoughts. Okay? You don't say, well, in my opinion, or based on the result of this. No, that comes in the discussion, where you have to interpret, where you have to connect with the existing knowledge, where you have to say, okay, this is what I'm contributing in this paper, which is new, or maybe consolidating the current evidence. So, I mean, these are for the discussion. In the result, simply, plainly, minus your opinion, write what you found. Don't say, in my opinion, I found, no. The data shows, the result finding shows that so many were women, so many were men, and regarding the source of family planning information, 40% said it was, they received the information from television, 30% said radio, and 20% said mass media, newspaper and all. So this is what the result section is. Okay? And it should be around 800 to 1000. Should not be more than that. Very precise, to the point, no nonsense, please. Okay? Because if you go into the nonsense area, then it will be 2000 words. Don't tell them what you think. Tell them what the science or the data that you have collected, only and only what it says. Okay? Your own great thinking will come in the discussion. Okay, so it should be around 2000. So where are we? So we are up to 2000 words. So we still have 1000 to cover. Discussion section. Now, this discussion section, basically what we do a brief recap of the key findings and results. We do interpretation. What do the results mean? This is where you share your thoughts, your ideas based on the evidence, okay, from past papers, from previous knowledge, current status of knowledge. You say, okay, well, this kind of result finding are similar in Bolivia. I mean, if people like to say, so nobody can catch them in Bolivia, or it was done in that area of the particular region or particular country or particular age group. So you can write what the results mean and how do they compare with the existing knowledge. Now the most important thing where a lot of people, the reviewers are interested in, okay, your findings were good, it really brings something new. But the writer has not written what are the implications? What will it do? Is it, will it have some policy implication? Will it have some implication that it will change the current practice? For example, there was something missing in the current family planning counseling technique that you found is very important. For example, when to come back for the next dose of DMPA, or something when to, what happens if you feel the thread of IUD, or if the implant is little bit protruding out of the skin. Have they given this kind of information? So if you say, well, this is extremely important and the healthcare provider needs to be trained and oriented on this aspect to cover during their consultation, you are having an impact on the current clinical practices. Or maybe it is program implementation, depending on the type of research that you're doing. So you have to tell them what this paper or my research at the background of this paper will change, or what will it improve on the current existing practices, policy, programs, practice, clinical routine practices. So that is very, very important. Maybe you need to write 2 or 3 lines, but you have to write something. What is it going to do? Maybe it's simple, better understanding. Maybe it is just adding to the existing knowledge that 6 papers said this is happening, and I confirm that it is actually happening. Consolidate the evidence, whatever the aspect is. Limitations. You also need to focus on limitations. You need to tell them in the later part of the discussion section. You have to tell them. I mean, don't give them the impression it is an ideal paper, no mistake, nothing wrong. You tell them, well, I've tried my best. Always, you know, give them a very honest opinion in the limitations. By the way, you don't have to list 10 bullet points for limitations. Just touch on 2 or 3 things that you think are most important. You can say, well, because of the financial constraint, we had to limit the sample size to 300 people. It would have been much better if it was covering larger population. So that is a limitation. But you can, at the same time, when you write a negative point, you also give immediately at the same time what you have done to minimize the impact on your study. So remember, you tell them negative, but at the same time in the next sentence you tell them what you have done to minimize that negativity or making it neutral. Don't say it become positive actually. So these are the limitations. Okay? So you tell them these are the challenges that we faced, or for example, we wanted to do, we only did focus group discussion, we wanted to do in-depth interview, but people were shy or the women were not willing to come to me one by one, they didn't have time, or it's a stigmatized topic, they didn't feel comfortable. As a group, I was able to. So we wanted to do in-depth interview, but we were only able to go up to focus group. So you can think about. Recommendation. So you have to write, is the data sufficient to understand and describe the phenomena under study? Do we need to do further research? This is a very common, it's savior. There's a need to do more research in this area. So feel free to write that if you think this is something you really feel, that there is not sufficient data, not sufficient published evidence. You only have to rely on the published evidence. So it should be around 1,000 to 1,200 words, and then we are now coming up to around 3,000 words for a scientific paper. So we have covered all this area. And how much time do? Okay, 1 minute I have. So I'll not stay on this slide for long, but there is a section called referencing. Okay, reference list of the papers that you have studied or referred to during your scientific paper writing. There can be different journals have their different requirements. Some would go for a Harvard style, Vancouver style, APA, whatever. So you have to look at the published paper in your target journal where you want to publish, and then you arrange your references accordingly. There are certain, nowadays, there are certain, software available. This is free of cost, I think, EndNote Basic. You can download them. You can, just use it for organizing your references. It is much easier. But this is just to give an idea. And this is the last slide. So at the end, you have to just look at some of the key questions or summarize. Is your thesis statement or your research statement clear and concise? Is your paper well organized? Does it flow from beginning to end with the logical transitions? Always make sure, most of the papers require that you go by the typical standard introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So make sure that all these sections are properly covered, unless you are writing a policy paper or you are writing some qualitative which is different. a little bit, but generally this pattern follows. And how do you, have you used concrete details and facts and avoided generalization? Don't talk about having 100 people interviewed and saying, well, globally this is happening. Okay? So avoid generalization. Just say, well, this seems to be happening. Okay? More research is needed to ensure that we understand the phenomena better. So be careful with the generalization. Uh, do your argument, support and prove your thesis. Don't, avoid repetition. Make sure reference section is good. Make sure that this area is also covered. And finally, submit your manuscript online now. Most of the papers, in fact, majority of the papers are online now. So you can submit. It takes a bit of while to navigate through how to submit a paper online. Uh, it's not a major issue. Okay? So happy publishing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mazen. That was excellent. I might ask you and Stella and Unop to come and sit up at the panel discussion here, and we'll have some questions. In the meantime, I'm just going to, I wonder if I could get one of the guys from that technical people to come and plug in my computer for me, please. So hopefully, so the code for the Slido is 101906, if anyone wants to submit any questions that way. Thanks. Not sure how to, hopefully if I just...
ผมขอเจ้าหน้าที่มาช่วยต่อคอมพิวเตอร์ sorry I speak Thai to
Oh,
them.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need someone to plug in the... Great. Do you want to come and sit over? It might be easier if we're all together, I just think so. Hi. There's the HDMI. Okay, so whilst I'm getting the computer set up there, so I'm going to ask our panel some questions, and when I ask the question, maybe if you could introduce yourselves to the group here, and then we'll take some questions from the floor. So I might start, Mazen, with you, seeing you've been talking already. So you outlined some very good points in your talk. So which parts of the paper do you find junior scientists most commonly struggle with, and what can they do to improve this? So what is the most difficult section, do you think, that people find?
Based on my, thank you very much, Jen, first of all. Based on my experience as a reviewer of papers for some journals, I think the challenge is to separate the result section from discussion section. Because what people do is they overlap. They express their personal views in the result section, which should be in discussion section. You have to relate the other published material with your scientific material that you are publishing. You say, well, based on what was already done, this is where my paper stands. But in the result section, you simply talk about percentages, numbers, figures, tables. You don't interpret. In discussion, you interpret. So this is, I think, a little bit a gray line sometimes in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
But,
yeah. It's a difficult thing sometimes.
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
Unop, coming to you, and I'll get you to introduce yourself first, but I was wondering if you could talk to us about some tips for junior scientists who may be from non-English speaking backgrounds about starting to get published in English, and maybe some tips for support and things that they might need.
Thank you, Jane, for giving me opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Anop Samran. I'm professor in obstetric and gynecology, working in Bangkok at Chulalongkorn University. And my opinion for the non-English speaking, I would say, scientists, I don't think that English will be I mean, as important as you know the way how to write a paper. You heard about the anatomy and physiology and some other things of the published articles. I think this is the most important thing, that you know the essential part you need to present in your paper. So, but I mean, knowing good English and good skill of using English language is also important, but not as important as you know the way how to write a paper. I just share with you my experience when I first write the scientific paper. Since we are in Thailand, we don't speak English. We just use English, I mean, in classes, in some classes. The most important thing is you need to read a lot. You need to read, I mean, and go through the published article related in your fields. So you know, I mean, the way how they present their research findings, the phrases, the wordings, and some other vocabulary and grammatically written, I mean, they use in their publication. This is the most important thing. And the second thing is giving time. Since writing a good manuscript will take a lot of time, it's time consuming. Sometimes you need to spend the whole day just for only one part, like introduction, you spend like a week on that, and you need to continue your work because you need to like develop your idea and further that, not just like having 1 hour and then a couple of weeks you come back and you forget everything. And third, practice a lot. You need a lot of skill in writing, and try to like giving time, as I already mentioned, you need to edit and correct. I mean, many times. This is very important. So I think, I mean, my suggestion is that giving time, and you need to allow a lot of time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think very wise words. And I echo very much what you say, how you have to read a lot of other people's work. And actually, when I get writer's block, which we all get, often what I'll do is go back to maybe some of my favorite papers from the big journals, like from Lancet or New England Journal, and just try and see, how did they write the discussion? How did they write their results? Not that I want to plagiarize what they've said, but just how did they structure it? What did they start with? It's a good way. How long was their section? And as you say, Mazam, often the introduction in those big journals is very short, like it's like a paragraph, or, you know, so you think, okay, if I've written 3 pages of introduction, perhaps there's something wrong with my article. I'm not going to be in this very good journal. So it's good to, as you say, take inspiration from what others have done. So thank you. Moving on now, Stella, I'll get you to introduce yourself to the group as well. But I was wondering if you could tell us, in your experiences, what are the things that make the difference between an article that gets accepted and maybe one that is more likely to be rejected? What are some of your tips for the audience? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Stella Babalola. I'm a professor of public health, Johns Hopkins University, based in Baltimore. So, you know, when I start to review a paper, I come to it with an open mind, and I just say, oh, Mr. X, convince me. You really have to convince me. So I'll be looking for a link between your research question and your methods and your results and the discussion. You know, many times people, they begin with a research question, and your research question has to be focused. It has to be clear, you know. So they begin with a research question, and then, you know, they go all over the world, all over the place. At the end of the day, you are asking yourself, how is this analysis you have done? Beautiful analysis, you know, sophisticated methods. How do they relate to your research question? So always have your research question in mind as you go into the data, as you do your analysis, as you describe your results, as you comment on it, you know, in the discussion, and then your conclusion and everything. I will be looking for a link among all the sections that we have seen this morning. I will also be looking at the clarity. Don't leave the reviewer, you know, the responsibility to make sense of what you've written. whatever you've written should make sense to the third person. And that's why it's always a good practice to allow somebody else to review your paper, your manuscript, before you send it out, so that, the things that, may make sense to you, but, do not make sense to the other person, they'll be able to pinpoint it. So those are some of the main things that I would say would differentiate a publishable one from a non-publishable one. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think, again, really good points there, and especially getting someone else to review your papers. So, I'm sure all of us here who've submitted any papers, often it's, draft 28 by the time you get to, your final draft, and 28's probably a good run for my papers. And so sometimes you can have edited out bits which actually were pretty important to the story, and you don't even realize it's gone because it's so, you just know this works so well. So getting someone else to read it can sometimes point out, hey, like what Maizam said, did you have an ethics statement for this? And you're like, oh, of course we had an ethics statement, and you put it back in because for some reason it's gone out. So yeah, very good points there. Thank you. So we have some questions on the Slido, and if anyone would like to stand up to the microphone and ask a question, please, move forward. But I'll ask a couple of questions, and maybe these can be taken across the panel. So we've got one question here from Dr. Deborah. As an early researcher, where do you advise me to start from? Challenging common sense, building on previous research or test theory? There's another question here from this anonymous, says, how much time approximately does it take to write a manuscript? And another one on time, what is an acceptable time to make a peer review? So maybe, should we start at this end? Do you want to start with one of those questions, or all of them? Where to start with your writing, or what sort of time does it take? Yeah,
so start with the writing. I think the most important thing is you need to have a good research first. I mean, start writing from a good and well-designed and well-done research is easier than trying to make things from something that is not uncertain. And I think, Sam already shared with us, the way we're gonna structure our paper. I think we start from the beginning, the introduction part, and run through the discussion, and abstract will be the last thing that we need to write. But it is, it would appear, first in the manuscript. And for the second question on how much time, so it depends, how competent you will be in writing. For me, since I do things rather slow, I'm not rather fast in doing things. So for me, I already mentioned that we allow a lot of time. We may take weeks or months, in writing that. So you need to, arrange, time for this. Thank you.
Thanks, Maizam, or Stella, any comments?
No, I just wanted to add that, writing, publishing doesn't just happen. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be intentional. I advise my junior colleagues to set aside time every week to write. Maybe you block maybe the morning of a Friday or whatever day of the week that this is dedicated to writing, because it doesn't happen on it, so you have to be intentional about it.
Thanks, Jane. I agree with my colleagues. I think the most difficult question should be directed towards Unop and Stella. The question that should come to me is, shall we write a paper? And my answer is yes. So, simple questions. The time, I think it takes between 4 to 6 months. If you ask me, between 4 to 6 months. If you are a native speaker, 4 to 6 months. If you are non-native, 4 to 6 months. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you are interpreting your scientific research. So it takes time. So, and don't be discouraged by the revisions, because as Jane mentioned, you have to revise and re-revise, and maybe one of those days when you look back and your paper is already published, you look at your first draft, believe me, you'll enjoy. Okay, where you were, what kind of information you were putting in, and at the end of the day, what you did, which was published. So revision, 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 and then you publish. So I think, like I mentioned, the timeline, don't expect that within the month I'll be able to submit them. No, it doesn't happen that way. It takes time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Rita, you wanted to add?
I just want to build on what Stella said. So as you know, I'm at WHO now. And initially, I really did not believe. I worked for supporting country programs. And I thought documenting is really not so important. But as I got into it, I realized that without documentation, it's very difficult to move. And as Stella said, we have now marked Friday morning just to think about what we need to write, how to write, and to improve on our past papers. And I think we did it for last 1 year. And in 2022, we were able to publish almost 8 to 9 papers. But this really comes when you devote dedicated time just for writing and not for, we have so many activities to do. But we need to block some time. This is the time for writing. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and certainly, you know, we all have many roles that we wear. We might have clinical roles, we might have managerial roles, we might have, you know, roles in our family and things. So it is important that we are able to organise our time, so we set aside time for writing, because it can take, as you say, easily 4 to 6 months, I think, for a good paper to do, and that's not counting the time that maybe the data collection and things, you know, took before then. This is the writing. There's a question here about how many references are considered enough for a paper. I mean, my response to that would be depends on your paper, I guess, you know, and also on the journal requirements, because some journals do limit the number of references that you can have. So they might say 30 references or 50. But I don't know whether whether any of you have any comments on how the scientists should approach that. Maizam, or? Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah.
It's okay. Generally, for referencing, I would say a typical paper would have between 20 to 35 references, a typical paper. But if you are writing a systematic review and you give only 20 references, basically you have not done anything. So it depends on the kind of paper that you're writing. If it's a systematic review, I'll be interested if it is between 50 to 70 references. But if it is a normal typical research, I would not go beyond 20 to maximum of 35 references.
Sorry. So I would suggest that for like not the systematic review one, the number of the papers, I mean, like would be determined by the information you want to refer to. So it depends on, I mean, the information you would get from that reference, and just try to avoid, I mean, unnecessary reference that would jeopardize your discussion.
Yeah, that was what I was going to add, that, you know, we have to be parsimonious. Why cite 10 references when 3 will suffice? At times we want to show that we know the field, we are familiar, we've read, but, you know, it's just a waste of time to cite 10 references to support a point when 3 will suffice.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think when you're looking at references, to show that you really know the field, you'll cite the seminal papers in that field. You're not going to cite every single person who's ever written on the topic. So if there is a, you know, particularly good, you know, systematic review in the British Medical Journal or something like that, then maybe that's the paper that you need to cite. And also looking at sort of this, I guess the conflict between, you know, who first described this thing and then who last described this thing, you know, who sort of summed it up. So, I mean, it always seems a bit stupid to me if I read something like, you know, a very obvious statement like, you know, antenatal care improves pregnancy outcomes, and they cite someone in 2021 as saying that, and you're like, well, I think we've known that longer than 2021, you know. So you have to think, you know, does that really need to have a reference to it if it's a statement that's pretty obvious, or is there something, you know, is there something more behind that, like, you know, antenatal care can improve outcomes by X% or something, or that might be more needing of a reference. So I think it is a balance to strike, and I guess it comes with reading a lot of other papers and maybe asking your seniors and things as well whether they think your paper is adequately placed within the body of literature. I think, don't go overboard and cite every single thing that was ever done on the topic, even though you might have had to look up all those papers to understand the topic. We don't need to know that when we're reading the articles there. So good. Excellent. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask from the room here? Please feel free to, the microphone is just behind.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Go Ishan. I'm from University Tunku Abdul Rahman. I'm a research assistant. And my question is, often we are, I started with very simple analysis, such as regression and t-test. Then I intend to publish, but then the t-test result wasn't that good. So my senior advised me, okay, you try to do moderator. So moderator doesn't work out. So he suggests, okay, why not you do a moderated mediation? Okay, so the result is significant, but then it is somehow beyond my understanding. So what would you advise the junior researcher, whether they still goes with the not so beautiful result or the sophisticated analysis and beautiful result, which often impress the people? Yeah.
Thank you. Who wants to take that first?
Yeah, I can start. I think you want to be careful not to look foolish. Because, your manuscript will be reviewed usually by people who know. So you don't want to be saying things and people are saying this person doesn't know what they are saying. So, we don't always have to do sophisticated analysis. We just have to do enough analysis to answer a research question. And then you want to be careful that the way you are describing the results and interpreting the results actually do make sense, not just to you, but to the person who's going to be reviewing it. I don't think we need to impress people. Just make sure that you know what you are talking about.
Yes, and I think that in your institution, you may have some consultant in terms of the stat or writing or English editing service in your institution as well. You need to find some assistance from them.
Yeah, no, I think that's they're good comments there. I think we should always understand what we're writing. And if you don't understand your results, then you can't really put your name to that. So I think having a null result that you understand is probably a better way to go. We shouldn't just be chasing p-values. We should be asking a question and answering it there. So, yeah, question.
Hi, this is Visar from Pakistan. Just I want to get knowledge that there in the results section, there is easier way to write results of quantitative studies. So what are the tips for the qualitative studies in a result section?
Excellent question. Does anyone want to take that?
Well, I can start. I mean, I do more quantitative than qualitative. But I think that, in your qualitative, first of all, I would want to see what is the theory that guides your analysis. And then, how are you relating that theory to the findings? We are not talking about numbers here. We are talking about, is the qualitative, So I want to see what concepts are you using? I also want to see, for example, how the data was coded, how the management, the data analysis part of it, and the theory you are using, and what are the findings to support that. I want to see you, for example, quoting the participants, making them talk, But more importantly, I want to see a theoretical link between, what you are telling us and what the data are saying.
No, for qualitative, I'm not keen in that.
Yeah, no, I think Stella, I completely agree with you that where qualitative papers fall down is a lot of people come from medical backgrounds like me, and we think we'll just go out and we'll do some interviews and then we'll just write it up. But actually, qualitative research is a whole discipline of its own, and it relies on there being a theory of what you think is going to happen. So that might be a behavior change theory. It might be other sorts of theory. It is best to talk to a qualitative researcher when you're planning your work and when you're writing it up, because it's going to be very difficult to publish something, particularly in a qualitative journal, if you're not coming from that sort of a background. So I think there are a number of checklists available to help us, make sure we've covered all the bases, like what Myazam said, for quantitative research. So we're probably all familiar with the consort checklist, strobe, these sort of things. There are also things for qualitative research, although less prescriptive. Like I think it's COREC is one that's there, but you can look up, frameworks to help us write, because it is difficult to write qualitative research well. So great. Fantastic. Well, I think we may be pretty much at time now. So thank you very much to our panel. I think you have very good answers to the questions, and thank you to Myazam for your lecture again. So tomorrow, I think given the challenges we all had getting here this early, I suggest we start at 7:15 tomorrow morning. How does that sound to everyone? Is that acceptable? And there will be breakfast here, so, and spread the word around, and we might, Jordan, send an email to all the participants so people know. Tomorrow, we've got a great session planned. We've got Dr. Chandra Muli from the WHO giving us a lecture, and we've got some journal editors speaking to us about what they look for in papers. So, certainly a session not to be missed. But I think let's give some thanks and applause to our panel now for a good session this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are we going to share the slides? I think, Jordan, so I think on the platform, Drifter platform, will the sessions be available and things there? So yes. Yep, that's the answer. Thank you. Great, thank you.